It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, the top 10 Land Rovers of all time, according to Hot Cars, and then a very special interview with Land Rover luminary Micheal Bishop. And now, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Barris, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at thebarriscollection.com or follow us on Instagram at thebarriscollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the British Association fastener to Stephen's metric Torx fastener. I am the obscure thread form of podcasting, Ike Goss. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, it's another week and some more Land Rover news. This is an article from Hot Cars, which I know you're a big fan of. It's automobiles dressed in alluring negligees and swim costumes and what have you. And also cars that just overheat a lot. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I was hoping it was just cars on fire.
Yeah, it's on fire. Hot Cars. Well, Hot Cars has come up with a list of 10 Land Rovers you can drive for decades. So I thought I would run through this list for you and see if you agree with Hot Cars on, so far as the Hot Cars list.
Quick question. Now, this is 10 models of Land Rover that you can drive? Okay, I thought
not
there was
individual cars. Yeah.
I thought there was just 10 of the millions that have been boosted.
That may also be true. Right. But this is specific to the models. So the number 10, which I guess would that mean it's the least likely to be driven for 10 years? I don't know. The 2010 Range Rover Sport. Apparently, because they replaced the 4.4 liter motor that they had used up to that point with a 5 liter V8, and the 5 liter V8 is a much better car. It's the 2010 model, which fits my theory that 2009 was the best year for Land Rovers. For whatever reason, all the ones they made in 2009, those are pretty good.
I will be honest with you and say I have never driven that vehicle. Have you driven that vehicle, that Range Rover Sport 2009 Range Rover Sport?
I don't know if I've ever driven a 2009. We have a newer one than that. We have like a 2018 one, but I don't think it has the 5 liter V8 in it. It's the one generation newer than that. But I do know people with this car, and they do seem to like it. It doesn't seem that broken down. So
my commentary on that is it's a 2009, and they say the idea of the article is that it can be driven for decades. So I'm going to call this one unproven.
It's a good point. It may at this point have been driven for a decade, but not decades. Yeah. They just aren't that old yet. Yeah.
So
fair enough.
Unproven.
All right. Number nine, the 20, this is the 11 LR4 or Discovery 4. And again, it is because it has the 5 liter V8. I think the common thread here.
I've heard good things about that motor. People seem to like that engine.
Well, and I know the 4.4, 4.1 liter, depending on what vehicle it was real shit, right? I mean, the timing chains would go and the whole motor would explode. This car didn't have those problems. It has some problems with the turbos or the supercharger, I guess, right? The 5 liters is a supercharged engine, I think. Anyways, this is like decades too new for me to know anything about these cars, but
the only reference that I am familiar with to the 5 liter is Mr. Vanilla Ice, got my top down in my 5.0. So my hair can blow.
Exactly.
So that is that's the only reference I know.
Apparently, according to this article, problems that owners report is that the timing chains and engine blows at between 50 and 60,000.
That seems like a minor issue.
I don't know that speaks volumes about decades of driving, but all right. Number 8 is the 2003 Range Rover. That's a 3rd generation Range Rover. And this was one of the ones that was developed under BMW ownership. It's a kind of a BMW-y sort of one, the L322. And this guy, apparently, this is the great year because it had a BMW 4.4 liter V8 engine in this guy. Apparently, the problem with this one is that it costs a ton of money in fuel. So, but I guess it doesn't blow up.
It seems less inconvenient than having it blow up.
The next one, number 7, is a 2004 Discovery 2. Certainly that I would agree with. Almost everyone has like an early 2000s Discovery 4, and they're still running. They may be on their 4th engine, but they're still going. Problems that report on this particular model is oil leaks. And
What about the I feel like the Discovery 2s are prone to overheating.
Well, I think so. I think so.
And 2004, that's a non-center diff lock model,
I think it may be. I think it's one where you can get the little kit to engage the center diff lock, but it does not have a knobby in the cabin for that one. So it's not great. Yeah. Number 6, 1999 Range Rover 2nd Edition, or more popularly referred to as the P38. I know that's your favorite Range Rover because it looks the most like a Ford product.
I believe that there are still P38s that run, but I would not suggest that as a particular.
It's apparently owners' problems are rust, which makes sense, and mixed steering on twisty roads. I don't know what that means. It's a mix of steering and no steering.
Sometimes it steers, sometimes it doesn't.
A little bit of that. Number 5 is the 1998 Discovery 1. That's a popular one. Of course, they're saying 300 TDI is the best one to get. We, of course, couldn't get that one here new, but people have them here now. And, of course, people report oil leaks and that oil can leak into the electrical system and short them out. And then, of course, blown head gaskets are a big issue.
Oil can leak into the electrical system.
Yeah. Apparently, highest reported mileage, which I think there's one's much higher, but 178,000 miles. That's not really that many miles. I also think there's way more than that. Number 4, 1997 Defender 90, which we're all very, 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 very familiar with. Owners report problems are temperamental check engine lights, which I mean, I guess, sort of. I mean, it has the Bosch, injection systems.
I think the engine lights in this particular case are not necessarily the problem. The engine lights are very reliable.
It's the thing that they're connected to. That's the problem. And owners also report as a problem a lack of luxury. So that's an issue. Highest mileage.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought of that in a utility vehicle?
494,312 miles.
That's seems like a more, that's a number that you would strive towards. The 173 was like
1997.
That's a car.
Defender 90 with a 4-liter engine with 494,000 miles on it. I would like to see that. I think we need some evidence.
I have a friend who lives in California, and he has one with like 363,000 miles. It's a NAS spec D90, and it is mostly rusted away. But he bought it in a junkyard, and it was still running, and it has like 360,000.
Well, there you go. He's pretty close then. The next up is the ever popular 1989 Range Rover Classic. This is a vogue here in this article because it's obviously a British leaning, it seems, or rest of the world leaning.
You think these people are prejudiced towards British?
This one again is rust and cracking bores in the 3.9 liter. Boy, does that happen. That 3.9 liter, that's many cylinder cracks in those cars. That's how a lot of them go out. So this one, it says maximum mileage 144,000 miles. That's not possible. I've seen cars with far more than that. I've had a car with more than that, I think. So, okay, now getting to number 2, coming into the home stretch here, the 1963 Series 2A, which makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's 60 years old, so it has to have lasted for decades, right? I feel like
the only reported problem
legitimate.
Is declutching and reclutching can be challenging off-road. I don't know what that means exactly. Like, is it more challenging on road or less challenging on the road? I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense. That one doesn't make a lot of sense. And the highest reported mileage, 99,000 miles, which maybe because that's where the speedometer just tops out. And so nobody knows. Nobody really knows.
It's true. Yeah, the speedometer only has 5 digits. So
that's it. Can't go once they get that mileage, then you park them and you buy another one. And finally, number 1, a 1954 Land Rover Series 1.
This is one I don't agree with. This is one I don't agree with.
Yeah.
1954 Series 1 has a Siamese bore engine in it, right? Siamese bore engine is prone to cracking between the middle 2 cylinders. And for that reason, I feel like the average 1954 Series 1 doesn't last as long as, say, a 1956 Series 1, which has a spread bore engine that corrected that problem.
This is the first year that they replaced it with a 2-liter engine. That's also not true. Is it? 1954?
Yeah,
late 51, right?
No,
yeah, late
it is
51.
true. Well,
yeah.
no, I'm sorry. That's true. Yeah, 51 is
and that
the Siamese bore 2 liter.
No, I don't. It said it replaced the 1.4 liter. Of course, it isn't 1.4 liter. It's 1.6 liter, which is the one that I have. Early 51, the last of the 1.6. Cleaning out the rubbish bin at the factory. Those first few 51s got a 1.6 liter. And so this is full of inaccuracy, but kind of a fun list. The funny thing is this, the Series 1 problems that owners report may need serious repair due to age. Which that's a fair statement, I guess. Any car.
I think that's going to be true.
7 years old, and the highest mileage reported is 85,000 miles. I also think that is not correct. Yeah, it feels light.
It's a little light. I think their research department needs some.
We'll put that article in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking out the Hot Cars 10 Land Rovers you can drive for decades.
Is this article written by AI?
It was. I think it was generated by AI. Yeah, I mean, there's the kind of historical inaccuracies in here that just reeks of AI. Now I don't know. Oh no, it's a gentleman named Nicholas Tickleby. Nicholas Tickleby.
Yeah,
it sounds real. It sounds like a real name.
He's my favorite author.
So there you go. There's the 10 models. So if you don't have one of those cars, don't expect decades of use out of your Land Rover.
Yeah, those are the only ones.
Those are the only ones, yeah, especially that Range Rover Sport. It's a good car. Well, there you have it. Well, speaking of decades of utility to the Land Rover, we have a super special interview. This is one from the series of Liza and Steve drive across all of England and Scotland. And by the way, if you haven't checked out the YouTube series yet, all 4 episodes are out now. So you can get all the way from Scotland all the way down to see our good friend Bob Ives all on the old YouTube. And we would appreciate you doing that.
That's a good thing. Take the trip.
Check it out and like and subscribe and turn on the notifications and thumbs it up and do all the things. Do all the YouTube things. It really helps us out. And if you guys like that, we'll continue making it. If you don't like it, just like this podcast, it's difficult to get us to stop. So, it's
But if you become a Patreon, we might consider stopping.
Maybe we got enough Patreons. We might consider stopping. So, speaking of utility over the years, decades of service, this is a very special interview with a very good friend of both of ours in no less than his own home, Mr. Micheal Bishop, Land Rover encyclopedia, luminary, historian, all around good guy. And he and I sat down and talked about all the new things that the Land Rover Classic Works is working on. So the trophy vehicles of, the classic V8 Defenders that they're building and the events that they're putting on. And we also had an opportunity to go and do a little bit of off-roading in car number 16, Mike's wonderful 80-inch number 16 pre-production car. And his son and Liza and I went booting around in, he happens to just have like a jungle track out the back of his house, sort of. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's you can take the Micheal Bishop out of the factory, but you can't take the factory out of the Micheal Bishop, I think is what it is. I don't know that he's not constructed that himself in the middle of the night with a digger out there, and but it was very cool. It was very fun. That is in the episode that's out last week of the On the Road series. So if you want to see us booting around in number 16 with Mr. Bishop, then go check that out. But in the meantime, here it is, another wonderful conversation with often contributor to the show, Mr. Micheal Bishop. All right, well, we're here in the Bishop abode, which I'm told used to be a police station, but we're here with the actual Micheal Bishop, if you will, modern day Roger Craythorne, one of the luminaries, if you will, oracle of vintage and current Land Rover knowledge. Mike, thanks for having us at the house here. Thank you for inviting us down to the mid of London on our way down to, or the mid of England rather, on our way down to the south. It's fantastic to see you as always, and thanks for sitting down for a chat.
You're very welcome. Brilliant to have you over here.
Yeah, this is great. I'm sorry we couldn't bring Ike, but
Oh, don't worry. Yeah. Don't worry. How many Nandos are there in the UK you have to review?
That's exactly right. Yeah, no, I know. It's funny, on the Facebook group now, folks have been sending us photos of Nando's that they haven't gotten a chance to go to because they're not sure, given no review yet, they're not sure. It was of course Bob Ives who was just in Zimbabwe and shot a Nando's that looks like it's in some kind of a temple or something. Like, I don't know. It was very foreboding looking Nando's, but yeah.
Yeah, we should have thought about this in the high country. You got into Wonangata Valley on that drive, and there you should have had somehow to Nando's. Somewhere we should have somehow thought of that. Yeah,
it's true. We've often thought about, like, we should only do these interviews in the next, find a willing Nando's and get it going. But anyways, well, thank you for having us. And I thought maybe today, as you know, you've reached, I think, like contributor status on the show. We're gonna have the Mike Bishop segment here fairly soon, I think. But I thought maybe an interesting thing to talk about, because you were there. Ike and I chatted a wee bit about the Packington Ford show, festival, gathering, and the fact that there was, so many pre-production cars there. It looked like an everyday occurrence. It was like the parking lot at the factory back in the 1940s. So I thought maybe we could start with, first of all, sort of a recap in your mind of some of the amazing cars that were there, some of the counts of what people had, and then just generally sort of your impression of some neat things about that show, and then we can see where we go, see what else we end up chatting about.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the Packington event was, one of these events is just on a pinnacle above something else, and with the 75th anniversary, it had to be done that way.
Yeah.
And so the guys at the club got in touch early and I was like, what do you think about this and that? And we always said, well, if you're going to do this, we've got to do pre-pros, we've got to do the Ford.
Yeah.
Got to do all those really cool things and celebrate those stories.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, there's, hundreds of things, thousands of things you could celebrate. There's tracked vehicles, there's floating vehicles, there's Forest Rovers, there's all this stuff. Yeah. But obviously focused this time on Series 1s, we kept it to the Ford because that's famously where Arthur Goddard and Johnny Cullen took Huey through on the original launch footage on Movie Tone News back in the day. The idea was just get people to enjoy and have that experience, drive through the Ford.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. How many of the pre-production cars actually went through?
That's a good question. I suspect probably number 3, Tim probably would took number 3 through on a drive.
Yeah.
Mike would have taken number 14. It's Mike Rivet.
Yeah.
14 definitely through.
Yeah.
I didn't honestly count because I was there with number 7 and number 16, and then Huey was there. We had the curator, Amy, came from the museum. We had to get Huey as car number 1 for the big photograph lineup, because that's obviously where it starts. You can't get earlier than Huey.
Right, that's right.
Even though some people think otherwise.
It's a story for another time.
That's a story. That's a debate for another time.
That's right.
Yeah, I didn't have placards for number 7 to say this is -4 or something.
That's right.
Yeah, so we got Huey into position and we did this lineup of the pre-pros, and we did it in a slightly different way. We lined them up by registration number. So we had the GWD, which are the first registered vehicles. We had the GWDs and Huey together, and then we had the HNXs and number 7, which is SNX, together. Had them sort of flanking the entrance, and then somewhere around about 350 Series 1s lined up behind them, and then the hall in the background.
Wow.
Now, I haven't seen any main pictures. I mean, they had a professional photographer there. Yeah. They had obviously people with drones and good cameras and all kinds of things. Yeah. But I'd love to see one of those shots when it comes through, because the geek in me wants to count how many Series 1s there actually in that lineup.
There?
You're going, go that way, park up there. But it was an incredible lineup, and also it was free range. Apart from the pre-pros, it was free range. It wasn't anybody sort of saying, well, you're a Tickford, you have to go over there, or you're a pickup, just give it to go over there.
Yeah, right.
No, it's just like, and that was great and fun to do, and reminiscent of the 50th when we were at Shotbrook Hall all those years ago, and they had the same sort of shot.
The same sort of setup. And how many more pre-production cars have shown up since then? How many more have sort of come out of the woodwork since 25 years ago?
Really, only as a full operating vehicle, really only number 7.
Just number 7, yeah.
I mean, the remains of 5 bits of 5 have appeared, but that's a long and complex story.
Right.
As is finding some of these rare cars, as you know, is a long and complex story.
Like putting a mummy back together, you find a finger and things every once in a while.
Yeah. So you never know. Suddenly the rest of it might appear. It might not. It might have been scrapped, but we don't know. But at least you can put a pinpoint on, okay, so that one's sort of stopped there.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And that's about it. I mean, these people don't realise, how well researched these vehicles are, and obviously how rare they are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And where every single one of them. We had lunch. We went. Sam, your son, is grilling you on where all of them are, and it is amazing your recall for who's got it and where it is and what's going on with it and how many are. It sounds there's still more than half of them are still sort of have kind of disappeared or are unfound. Maybe some of those are scrapped, but some of them are just unknown. So that there's a chance that every barn door you open, that there could be, you never know, There could be a pre-production.
There's a
Land
strong
Rover in there.
chance, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if another one appears, as in sort of number 7 style. That bang, out it comes, there it is.
All of a sudden, it's just there.
And something that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, and number 7 was found like just down the road from the factory, right? Like it wasn't that far away.
It was mad. It was sort of like just at the end of the runway of Birmingham Airport.
Yeah.
Like we'd all flown. If you'd been into Birmingham Airport, you would have flown over number 7 so much. It's just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
You think you've got generations of Land Rover staff flying over that car, wondering where it was.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, you look out the window and go, imagine if I saw a Land Rover in the backyard. Imagine if one day the pilot took a sort of slightly wrong turn. Someone would have been going, oh my God, look at that guy, look at that dude's backyard.
That's right. Yeah, that is really, it's an incredible story. Now, maybe that's a good thing to chat about. The condition that car was in when you found it. So first of all, I guess, how did you find that car? We've talked about this a little bit before, but like, where did that information come from that did somebody turn up at the factory and said, hey, we're moving and we've got this old Land Rover, you guys interested? Or where did that information come from?
So for me, James Taylor called me.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we'd been obviously
the famous Land Rover researcher, not the folk singer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Although I do like to think that they're the same person.
Yeah, that's an interesting twist in itself, isn't it?
I don't know if James Taylor can play guitar or if James Taylor knows anything about Land Rovers, but I'd like to get the two of them together.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah. But anyway, the Rover historian, James Taylor, gave me a call, and it was a week after we'd ended Defender.
Right.
And
so in about 2016, sort of 17.
20 years, February 2016.
Yeah.
So because it was 29th of January, we did the last Defender. A week or so later, it would all come down. And I was sort of still on that slight buzzy high that you sort of get when you're on events. And James always emails. He very rarely sort of calls and says, guess what? So as soon as the phone rang, and I was just getting some takeout Thai from down the road, and I was in this Thai restaurant about to get, I'd ordered takeout, and it's like, the wife was hungry and that, and James rang, and I was like, right, this is serious.
No matter which Taylor it is, I'm answering.
You're taking this call.
Right. Yeah.
So I took the call, and it was basically the conversation was like, you're never going to believe this. I think number 7's appeared. And of course I said, really? I can take that seriously. Have you got a photo? And he said, I'll email you the photos now. So, of course, I'm on my phone. Download, get the photo. And I looked at the photo, and it was the vehicle in that dilapidated state without the front wings or fenders on it, and a few other features. But I looked at it, and I was like, I'm 95%, 98% certain that's it. And it was like, tell me more. And basically the story that happened is, it was in this guy's backyard with another series, later 88-inch series one. And he'd had a property in Wales, and he wanted to use the Land Rovers to go to and from this property. And he got hold of number 7 from somewhere over, not far from here, central, West Midlands. And he somehow got hold of it, started to work on it, made a few mistakes, and it just sat in the backyard and slowly sank in. And that's where it's lucky it had a galvanised chassis. Otherwise it wouldn't be there, because one of the cross members was completely rotten. Well, 2 of them were completely rotten out, even for galvanised.
Wow.
So that, and the other one he managed to get going, and he was fairly ripe as well. But he decided to move to this property, and I think if I could have, he was either selling the property or renting it out or whatever, the one near Birmingham Airport, and the Land Rovers just had to go. So he went to this guy, Roy, who had a Rover restoration business.
Oh,
he worked at the factory.
Yeah.
He'd had a first retirement, set up this Rover restoration for Rover P6s and P5s and Range Rovers. Because he loved that era. That's the era from. Knew James from that side.
Okay.
And, anyway, this turns up. Take the Land Rovers, or I'm getting the scrap man. And he was winding up this business because he was going to have his second retirement. And he sort of looked at it and sort of thought, okay, well, I'll go and get the Land Rovers, and I'll make a couple of grand. And, just a quick turnover, maybe scrap them, whatever, So he went over to this bloke's place, saw that, knew what the 88-inch Series 1 was.
Right.
But when he looked at number 7, there was there's a feature on the Pre-Pros where the clamp for the steering box, the galvanised one, it's made out of 3 parts. And it does look a little bit bizarre, because you look at it and you think, actually, from an engineering point of view, why do they have to make it out of 3? Why?
Right.
And and he looked at that and he's like, there's something about that.
Yeah.
It made you think. So he rang James up and he said, I think I found this really early one, and that's how it came to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then Jaguar Land Rover at the time said, well, we've got to have that car. That's something we need back, or...
Yeah, so there was a couple of other things that happened. At the same time, bloke who got hold of the vehicle, he knew a couple of people who worked in the Jaguar side of Classic. Because Jaguar Classic at the time was it had a little workshop at Browns Lane.
Oh, right, okay.
And so he knew one of the technicians in there, being in that sort of old car restoration world. So he found out, and then Stuart, who was the sales manager at the time, found out about it. And there was only one other guy in the Series 1 club who found out about it. I'm not going to name him because he was one of these guys who he came across almost, the perfect opportunity.
Yes.
And ever since he's sort of been, I think he's fine with it. But
Right.
But he's always welcome to come and have a drive if he wants.
Good.
Be that custodian for 15, 20 minutes.
Sure,
he's very welcome to have that.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's such an important part of Land Rover history that it almost feels like, well, it's something that that Land Rover should own. It's a pretty important car.
It is, and for some reason the stars aligned that day and that month, and number 7. Because you think about it, was we were just starting. We finished Defender. We finished off with all that Defender celebration stuff that I'd done. So it was very topical for it to turn up.
Yeah,
you couldn't write this.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, because I mean, so much of the Land Rover Defender completion sort of thing was all about the history and all about how this car, how the tie down for the hood was the one part that it carried through. There was so much, and the celebration line that you put together at the factory of the original 80-inch car and going through and putting on your coat and going through and all of that sort of stuff. It was such a neat sort of thing. Yeah. So to have that then sort of the car in all those photos at the Amsterdam show and everything sort of be, it's just over here, here it is, like what an incredible, it's just what it does. It seems it's sort of fate at that point, right? Something has to have, sort of pushed it in the right way that it sort of reemerged. That's amazing. So then what was the process to get that car, number 7, out of the garden and into a place where, now you and I have driven it around in Palm Springs and all this sort of stuff, but like, what was that process like from the time that you dug it out of a garden to the time that it's operable again? What was that process like?
Well, so we didn't have anything to do with that process because, when it was found and, when he was fairly certain that it was an early one, he went and made sure that he got it dug out first and, sort of closed that loop of the risk of it being going off to someone else. I've got photos of it in the backyard. I didn't see it in the backyard. I saw it at his workshop, which wasn't that far away. It was only in Shirley, which isn't that far away from where it was found. But I think it, from talking to, people who are involved, it took some serious, extraction. It was in a really bad spot to get to with anything that you'd consider normal to extract, like a winch or a digger, or you just couldn't get there. So they had to get shovels out and just blood, sweat, and tears and all that. Yeah.
No, that's fitting. Well, it's chatting to Julian about where they found JUE as well, sort of in a similar it sort of seemed like it was gettable, but if you were to touch it in the wrong way, it would fall to bits and you'd lose some important piece of something to breaking or to something else. So the extraction of these very well-worn cars, to say the least, seems to be, is always an interesting process, and almost always seems to include just a bunch of guys with shovels. It's sort of getting them out, and that's cool. So you got it then, and it eventually ended up the Classic Works, and you guys, or Land Rover Classics, and you guys then went through the process of sort of bringing it to a point where, because I can't imagine it ran or drove or anything when it came out of the garden. Obviously, it hadn't done anything in a long time. What was that sort of process like?
So we had the vehicle for a while, and we secured it before we had the big, lovely building in Wrighton. And so it moved around a few locations first because that moving into that facility took a long time. Then got to the point where, we wanted to do something with it for the 70th. And so we had it as an unrestored vehicle at that television show thing we did.
We're up on the platform.
Yeah, with Quentin Wilson and that. And then we took it around a few other places. We took it to, Solihull did this day in the middle of the town square where they celebrated Land Rover and the history of Solihull. And the mayor of Solihull did this stuff, and it was there. And sort of fenced off, but people could look at it. It was very, it'd been in the papers. And that was the last event it was seen. That was probably around about sort of this time of year. That was the last time it was seen before it went into this restoration. And the announcement was we were going to do it in a year. Yeah, so it would have been, probably just before August, because we had to get it finished by the following August to launch it as a finished car in the Goodwood Revival, 2019.
Yeah, in 19. Yeah. Right before you came to see us in Palm Springs with it. for the Destination Defender. And then nobody saw anybody for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a bit of a, I took it to Amsterdam. They had a little event out there with a pre-reveal of the new Defender in the Rye building, which isn't used for motor shows or anything. It was used for this lifestyle show.
Right.
Yeah, which had lots of cool lifestyle stuff. So Land Rover sort of fitted in there. So we put it in there with a new Defender. And then the next event was Palm Springs, California.
Yep.
And went out to that, and that was amazing, as you well know.
Yeah.
Pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
And then the world, shut down.
Yeah.
And number seven came back. I just got it back into the into storage.
Yeah.
And then I was away for.
And that was it.
Yeah, I was here for 3 months playing with getting my original Land Rover.
That's right. Everybody was in their own garages working on their own Land Rovers for a little while, to say the least. Yeah. We lived in our workshop for a little while. We only had that one place to go.
Yeah.
So we could go between the house and we could go to the workshop, and that was about it.
For me, it was here with Sam and for a little bit, and in the frustration of I'd go out and the Land Rover would be straight to the back door, parts set out, and I'd go and relax.
That's right. It's a nice zen. Yeah.
And then I'd come back and say, right, okay, can I face, the 3 times table or whatever it was?
Yeah, like I haven't done any of this for 4 years. I don't know how this stuff. Exactly. Yeah. So what is happening nowadays at Land Rover Classics? What are some exciting projects that you guys have on the go? And what are some neat things? There's always some incredible car that you guys have in. If it isn't a demolished Range Rover from the James Bond film, it's an old Camel Trophy truck, or it's it's an early '48, a Series 1. But what's something that's really exciting that's going on there right now?
Well, the one we did this year, which was very exciting, I think, sort of launched to quite a lot of surprise, and quite a lot of very positive thing, was the Isla Edition. We'd been working on that for a long time. There's a long, sort of build up to that vehicle. It was a vehicle that we sat down and come up with the ideas and concept for. Probably, it was definitely during that COVID lockdown sort of period, looking at ideas and that. And the way I looked at it is, when we launched the 70th edition. Yeah, that was because there was no new Defender at the time.
Right.
That was sort of flying the flag for the whole Defender.
The whole,
nameplate,
that's right.
whatever.
That's right.
Yeah. And so it did look like very much a production line finished vehicle. Whereas once new Defender came in, which was great, we could start to sort of look at some of these other stories,
niche sort of stuff. Yeah.
And that's where Trophy 1 came in.
Right. And so it's interesting. I love that every year or so there's like another run of Defenders that aren't made anymore, that are somehow there's all these Defenders. Like, I just want one day to go into this room where there's 900 new Defenders waiting to be turned into some Classic Works special project. But the Isla Defender, now that is the same sort of Classic Works V8, modern drivetrain sort of thing as the Classic Works V8 was, right?
Yeah.
It's the same sort of drivetrain, but with all this neat. Now it has. Is it Scotch? Is it gin? What is it? It comes with a particular alcohol, the Isla Edition or something, or it comes with a
bottle of Kilhoman Scotch whiskey. It does.
Interesting. Yeah.
Funny enough, there's a bottle.
Oh, there's a bottle
just in that cupboard.
Right. Perfect. You don't even have to buy the car. It's right there.
No, they made 631 of them. Just bottles of it. Yeah.
Now the question is does it have a sediment cup, a set of shot glasses to go with it? That's the.
Well, it's just one of the cool things with coming up and getting inspired with a team.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I can safely say about Classic now, it's still a relatively new business compared to JLR or Land Rover as a brand or whatever as a whole. But you can see the maturity that's come into it. Those early days when we were sort of it was a new business. Yeah. Even though it was in under the umbrella of an old OEM, it was a new business. The Isla vehicle shows that we can take an idea like that, work with it as a team, and produce something which is really good. Yeah. And it comes with a bottle of alcohol, which isn't really what you should be celebrating and driving the same. No, we don't do that.
That's a good point, actually. I hadn't even thought about it until you said that. No, it's fine.
But obviously,
to be enjoyed responsibly.
To be enjoyed responsibly. So once you drive home and finish the day, you can get out.
You just sit out in your garden and enjoy the Scotch while looking at your new Defender. Yeah,
exactly.
Your new old Defender.
Your new old Defender.
Yeah, exactly. And well, so speaking of new old Defenders, so the Land Rover Defender Trophy, how's that going? Because I mean, it seems to be just fantastic. I've seen lots of photos from the events as all these cars are going out. Now, is this the third iteration, the third year, or whatever that you've done? Only a second, yeah. And how was that? How was this most recent one?
That was awesome.
We talked to Dimbleby just a little bit about it. He said it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I mean, the first one was also brilliant. Obviously, the first one was Easter, when it had that very hot week in the UK, and the top of the Castle View looked a little bit like sort of some of the surrounding Africa or something. It was that dry, and it was lovely. But I suppose because Easter, you're used to it being muddy and difficult, and that it was dry, so it wasn't as complex as it to be expected, but it's still brilliant.
Right.
Whereas this one, being a new location, being somewhere you didn't know, the tracks weren't quite as. It was just. It was an estate for hunting, and they were able to create some really good sort of camel trophy-esque, G4-esque, events and tasks and trials and everything. Of which I got roped into being the last competitor again, which was fantastic.
Yeah. And did you take your high capacity Defender trophy or Land Rover trophy vehicle with you?
Yeah, well, I had a second one. So
okay.
So the one which we actually did paint in Sanglow. The first one. The second one was a left-hand drive with the stickers down the side of 20 or so countries where Land Rover's been doing adventures around the world, decades and decades. And we put that down the side, and
very cool.
And out I went and. Tried not to win.
Right. Oh, that's super cool. So, who are some of the Camel Trophy folks that were involved in that? Were there a couple?
There's the Days. Simon and Mark.
Yeah,
Appleby was there.
Yeah.
I think Johnny Nicol. He was there. Trying to think.
Obviously,
so I know them all. I know them all so well.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
It's like old home week. So.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, the organizers of that are the G4 folks that did that event. Yes, or
well, it's basically from the actual driving dynamic in it.
Yeah.
Mark and Simon.
Yeah, Mark and Simon.
Yeah, and obviously on the same sort of well-known and loved themes, but say when you got a fresh site and nobody knows where anything is, or if that's obviously Easter. Yeah. That for me there was one obstacle in Easter. The big concrete H.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's an obstacle. On that, when we went and did that on the previous trophy event, it was a blindfolded. So the driver had to be blindfolded. And of course, I've driven that a million times.
Right.
And I went through it. And got to the end, there was some young instructors at the end, and they said, "How the hell did you do that so quickly?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've done that. I can do it blindfolded."
I do it blindfolded.
This side was great because there was none of that.
Right.
And we could do things a little bit differently. There was one which was a dynamic drive of a point-to-point, sort of like in rally driving style with list nodes.
Yeah.
However, they mucked up the course. So when you had to get to a sign, and you got to a sign, and the sign changed and said, "Okay, so you got to look for almost like 3 words around it. You got to look for this version of the pace note." So you're sort of there flicking through, trying to. Oh, okay, so we've got to go that way, and that was quite good because it was a time trial.
Oh, that's great.
And it was reasonably quick, but the pace notes were always mucked up. And so
it's not as easy. Yeah, that's cool. I mean,
and it was off road.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think that more events that sort of hearken to the the sort of legacy of things like Camel Trophy. Of things that are in the spirit of something like Camel Trophy is fantastic. I think the fact that you guys are doing things, like the Defender Trophy and thing, that is super cool. I mean, I think that giving people an opportunity to experience, obviously, the days of going to Sabah, Malaysia, we were talking to Duncan Barber about this, and bushwhacking around in the jungle and things, that's a different time. I think that there's not the opportunity geopolitically to do things like that anymore. I don't think there, from a conservation standpoint, it's not palatable to do or even allowed to do some of those things. But I think having you guys be able to host these events, both here and the ones that are happening in the United States as well, with the new cars, to give people the sort of flavor of what the vehicles are capable of sort of, being able to say, "Oh, I watched those Camel Trophy videos, or I watched those G4 videos or Trek videos or whatever back in the day, and I'm going to go and sort of have a go at it myself," I think is just incredible. And that Land Rover JLR is part of doing that and sort of leading that charge is exceptional. I mean, it's really fantastic. It's really cool.
Well, it's part of the, to coin a phrase, part of the DNA. You almost can't not do it if you're offering vehicles like that.
Right.
Yeah, you got this, fantastic, off-road product.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to come with an event, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, I think we were at the Classic Works there, a number of years ago, and sort of saw all of those sand glow cars, at a Land Rover facility. It had been a long time since the last time a sand glow car had come out of anything close to special vehicles. So it's pretty neat. It's neat to see that continued, and
It's pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And then, of course, now the grey ones are starting to come through, the Islas.
Yeah.
So we've finished obviously the Trophy 2s.
Yep.
Islas are coming through now.
Yep.
Which is great because they're going to look, it's going to look like a whole pile of old series vehicles in grey limestone.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's going to be really, really cool.
That's so cool. And so what about the series continuation lines, the restoration business? How's that going? If somebody wanted to bring you their classic Land Rover in whatever shape it may be in, is that still a business you guys are doing? You'll still take an old car and do a restoration, or are you focused mostly now on the sort of edition cars?
The focus is more on the editions, be it the Isla, and on the Jag. So we've done this vehicle called the ZP, which is based on a track day E-type story.
Yeah.
And so that's where the main focus is on there. Yeah, it's not to say we wouldn't. If something comes along and it inspires us and the timing works. The main tricky bit is the timing.
Right.
And in all honesty, somebody comes in and says, I've got this, I've got, number 7 again. So just say that happened, hypothetically speaking. It wouldn't be a no, but it'd be like, okay, we've got a time slot in however many years in time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We can't really quote you because we don't know what the world's going to be like then.
Right.
We'd sort of just give you a feel. It might be around about this kind of figure, but to be honest, you'll have to wait.
Sure, yeah. But if it's something where it's, like you say, like it is one of those vehicles where, maybe the pedigree of the car or something is increased by having Land Rover itself do it might be worth it. But if I have a Series 3 that I bought from my mate down the street and it just needs a new galvanized chassis and stuff, probably not the right.
Yeah. I mean, people have been through and they've seen we've done various things, including, a few bespoke Series 3s and that. We've been on tours.
Yeah.
And and it's fantastic to do them.
Yeah.
But it is, it's as much as fun it is, the Classic's got its, it's found its niche, what it does.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And it's best to focus on those.
For sure, and I think that, it's so fantastic that manufacturers have, in general, I think, embraced this idea of continuation cars, edition cars, whatever you want to call it, right? Having those classic vehicles that they are famous for, that isn't selling the brand new car, but to a certain segment of the fan base is the car they've always wanted. And they probably already have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the new cars, but they've always wanted that classic two-door Range Rover. They've always wanted a classic Defender, but owning several classic Defenders, ownership is something that is an acquired taste, to say the least.
Yeah.
And if your daily driver is a brand new Range Rover jumping into a 90s Defender, it's a bit of a change. But if you could have one with a fantastic engine and with a great automatic transmission and with everything that comes with the Classic Works cars, it makes total sense. Makes total sense.
Indeed. No, it's all good fun, and seeing that Isla vehicle come to life, I have to say it was a pretty memorable one.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you have to tell me where all of these Defenders, all these classes. There's a whole pile of Defenders. There'll be Defenders forever.
There's no mythical sort of pot of Defenders. There is. We do have to go to the and go and source vehicles, and it's not getting. None of that's easy.
Right.
In all honesty, when you're into specialist vehicles, one of the reasons why we all do it is because it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it?
That's right.
To go and get that, or get it restored, or get it fixed, or whatever vehicle it is. And that's, definitely part of the inspiration for us, aside from, reliving these stories, be it, trophies or, Land Rover name stories or Jaguar ZP track day cars or whatever it is.
Right. Well, I think that, again, and I've said that before, but that's such a cool thing about it is not only are you buying this interesting car that, is but you're buying the whole experience along with it. You're buying the opportunity to go and actually do something with it that is, makes a memory and does something noteworthy and is a fun thing to do, It's not just a neat car that you have parked up in the driveway, but it's something that you've gone and then actually done something with, which I think is great. There's too many folks out there, I think, buying, fancy off-road vehicles and things that will never touch the dirt, Even classic Land Rovers, there's a few folks that don't like getting them rained on. So, that's not, hey, each his own.
Each to their own. And the other thing we've done recently, we did one earlier, just before I went to Australia. It was, just after. Either way, we started doing bespoke off-road drive events.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done a few, bespoke, road drives with E-types and bits and pieces, but we did these off-road drives where people could come along, we'd do a convoy, and they could move through the iterations, the series, the Dells, and Spencer Wilkes Series 2, and my old Range.
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
But you also got an opportunity for a demonstration in number 7, or a demonstration. We've got Range Rover chassis number 1 now in the collection, so it's doing demonstrations in that over concrete obstacles. Not splashing through the mud,
right?
Or anything, but these incredibly iconic, sort of cars on a pedestal,
right?
Let's see how it works. Let's see what it does. And people are just like blown away. Like, this is Range Rover chassis number 1. Yeah, this is Range Rover.
This is it. Yeah,
this is it. Yeah.
I know. I got an opportunity to drive a D-type race car, and they said, "Oh, this car is worth £1.5 million. So take it easy in the corners." Why am I allowed to drive this? Like, this shouldn't. You shouldn't be letting people drive this. But they're like, no, that's what it's for. It's it's here to do that. And there's only X number of these and whatever. But just be careful. So they don't let you drive by yourself. But it is pretty cool, and it's great that JLR does that. That they are as passionate about people not just looking at the cars sort of quietly in a museum, but experiencing them. That's what makes it so great, is actually to get out there and ride around in an 80-inch and realize that, like, oh, this is the most fun car I've ever been in.
Yeah. And the one thing we wanted to make it absolutely sure was that it wasn't, when you go and you do your LRE days and you're trying to instruct someone on best practice,
right?
Say, okay, let's not approach this obstacle that way because we'll get stuck.
Right.
If you peel that a little bit of that away, and if someone gets stuck, it's not the end of the world, is it?
Right.
He's got to just winch them out. So we did do that. So there was some funny moments, getting things stuck. They'll get stuck and go, "What are you going to do?" Well, you're going to have to pull that out with the Range Rover behind, and creating that sort of story that wasn't just about, no, you drive it this way, and
don't go down there, don't do that. That's right.
Let's make it a little bit of mischief.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing when they tell you we better turn up with the proper wellies because you're gonna get muddy. You have to get out of the car. You're gonna it's like my father and I went to Eastern Castle once, and they sort of said, "Oh, do you have rubber boots? You have wellies. You'll need that here." Yeah. And he sort of said, "Well, no, I didn't bring that." And so we had to get him some, and sure enough, we're trudging around in the mud, and it was great. It was absolutely wonderful. So, well, Michael, it has, as always, been nothing but a pleasure to spend time and to chat and continue your Land Rover knowledge community give back, which is, like I say, there is no replacement for you these days. I hope Land Rover keeps you hermetically sealed somewhere, as all that knowledge is very valuable to all of us who love these cars.
I think I have to take you on as my agent now.
So. Yeah, that's right. We'll work on a deal. Yeah, we'll work on a deal. Well, thanks, Mike, for having us here in the house and for hanging out and for everything that you do for the community and for the show and for everything else. So.
No, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Anytime.
The next thing, you need to come and do a Death Valley trip with Ike and I, and out in the middle of nowhere, and we'll promise JLR that we won't lose you. So
I think from the feedback I got from the High Country trip from some people, right up through the business, like, that was awesome. Do that again. So I'm sure they'll release me for Death Valley or anywhere else you want to sort of throw me in the deep end. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, let's do it. Well, thanks again, Mike. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, fantastic to spend some time at the Bishop abode. A great place and full of Land Rovering bits and all kinds of stuff. And it was really fun having lunch with he and his son and just hanging out and getting a little quality Micheal Bishop time.
Yeah, super great. Love that guy. Very generous fellow, both with his time and expertise. So really appreciate him giving us this.
We're going to hopefully have him over here at some point in the coming year and do some exciting off-road adventuring. Maybe he'll drive the Freelander. We'll see. I don't know. Depends.
Maybe someone will drive the Freelander. Maybe.
Speaking about cars on fire, it's only a matter of time.
Did it burn down yet?
Not yet. Well, at that, if you need some Rebel merch, if you need some standard Underpowered Hour merch, or if you just feel like taking a peruse through Tiny Ike stickers, head on over to Hour.com. You can purchase all your merch there. Still working on those Ike and Linus 12-inch action figures, but the manufacturing company promises that as soon as they're able to miniaturize the denim overalls, that we'll have a prototype. So working on that now.
Will be delivered
absolutely.
in discreet
No, it'll be like a sex toy. It comes in a brown paper bag, and it's labeled "Not Icon Linus action figures." That's right. So yeah, you'll get that in 4 to 6 weeks. So with that, Ike, as always, it has been a fantastic pleasure to chat with you. Hopefully, your Land Rover will last several decades, and we'll talk to you next week. The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Veris, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Veris. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.